This is a story about an old car and a stupid guy. Because the good ideas are usually the boring ones. Because hey, what could possibly go wrong? Hello and welcome. In this video I want to talk about the trip I did 11 years ago on a bicycle. And this trip crossed as well Central Asia, so it's quite similar to the trip planned ahead with Theodore. And you want to use it as a small opportunity to practice my video editing skills. And I really hope you enjoy it. So let's go. It all started with a train ride towards Venice. Venice is a beautiful place, but not much later I was bound to Greece on a ferry. And after a comfortable ferry ride over the Mediterranean Sea, I reached Greece, where there were some nice temples. Followed by another ferry ride to Lesbos, where my bike was finally assembled and not a piece of luggage anymore. Another ferry brought me to Turkey, where I had my first night in my tent. In Turkey, my bike ride finally started, and as you can see, I was excited. Driving endless hot roads, I made some new friends along the way. Cycling in Turkey is pretty nice, the roads are good, the people are nice, and the food is just amazing. But Turkey is a big country, so for part of the route in Turkey, I took a train, bringing me towards the Iranian border. After taking the train, I was back on my bike, riding endless roads. And it was the first real test for me to see how fit I was. And it worked pretty well, driving 100 to 130 kilometers a day along endless roads in the very east of Turkey. One last night in a hotel before crossing the border to Iran. My bike was of course also in my room. I crossed many trucks who were waiting to cross the border, and also crossing with a bike took half the day. But finally I entered the Iran. It was my second time in this beautiful country, and I have to admit, I love the country, I love the people, and I love the food. No other country is that welcoming. It is rather hard to actually reach anywhere in Iran because constantly people stop you, offer you food and drinks, invite you to their house, and absolutely don't expect anything in return. Thank you at this point to the Iranian people for the warm welcome in their beautiful country. It was tiring and hot though, so at some point I ended up probably having a heat stroke. Maybe it was the food, but in Tabriz I ended up having a day on the carpet in the hotel room, not too far from the bathroom, trying to survive. But hey, isn't that part of an adventure? A few days later I reached Tehran, where I went to the top of a TV tower to enjoy the view. I also met a friend from Berlin who traveled a similar route, hitchhiking across Central Asia, so he's somebody you will see along the video once in a while. The beach at the Caspian Sea was a bit different than expected, mainly full of cars. And after taking a bus to Mashhad, because also Iran is a very big country, I headed straight towards Turkmenistan. Turkmenistan is known to be a very closed country. This is the bridge over the border, the only photo I dared to take, and the border crossing took me about 7 hours. The guards were all heavily armed with Kalashnikovs, and Turkmenistan didn't make the very welcoming impression to begin with. Also, I only got a 4-day transit visa, which was a challenge because I had to battle 400 kilometers of desert in that time. The roads went from okay to medium to rather bad, but that was the smallest problem. The bigger problem was the constant headwind blowing sand into my eyes. Also the heat, up to 45 degrees every day, so I loaded my bike with a lot of water to stay hydrated. Unfortunately, due to my limited transit visa, I didn't have a lot of time to visit the ancient and beautiful history, but a few buildings were a nice reminder of the rich past Turkmenistan has. Turkmenistan is also famous for surreal buildings rising out of the desert. Deserts where dromedaries find their home, and absolutely nobody else outside in the burning heat. Fighting my way through this heat was not exactly fun, but once in a while I found a place to sleep also, except for my tent. But here also hotels don't have beds. The food, well, you get used to it. And the people are generally very nice, sometimes drunk, often a bit closed, because, well, it's a specific country. But I enjoyed it a lot and did meet quite a few nice people on the way who are always helpful and friendly. Next I entered Uzbekistan, which is probably the country with the most curious and friendly people on the route, everybody asking where I was from, where I was going. Children are always the same, always having fun, always full of happiness. And Samarkand is definitely a beautiful place, rich in history, that I can recommend anybody to visit. It was a hot ride through the south of Uzbekistan. I met some other fellow travelers from France, and it was a great change to cycle with somebody and share a camp for 2 days before I continued again alone along the empty roads through the unforgiving heat. Once in a while I met some trucks with watermelons, and they would give me watermelons for free, which was definitely a welcome refreshment. My trip was basically full of punctures. I shouldn't say weight on tires in the future, but that's part of it. In Uzbekistan I also met a German guy who was helping to produce engine oil, and it was quite nice after 5 or 6 days not seeing a European to hang out with a German in his lab that looked like a meth lab, but trust me, it wasn't. All they were doing was engine oil in big buckets, which apparently is quite a science for itself. I entered Tajikistan, spent a few days in Dushanbe, and then the real adventure started. I'm leaving Dushanbe at the moment. Want to make a lot of kilometers today to get a good start. I'm a little nervous because it's almost undoable. 1,900 kilometers, 10 days, and the roughest condition I could imagine. Crossing the second highest international road worldwide. Bad road conditions, a lot of fight, cold weather, snow, whatever. I'm very excited, looking forward to that mess of an adventure. So now that's a very interesting point. That's where the road divides. Basically I could choose between a very nice road, good condition, 300 kilometers, Kyrgyzstan, something like that, and 1,100 kilometers, horrible road, Pamir highway. Let's do the horrible one, that's more interesting. There was nothing else I could do with my ego. Let's do it! Along the road was a lot of livestock. I guess that's where the tasty broth comes from. The shepherds were friendly, the traffic was a mess, and was definitely a nice experience. Also, to begin with, the roads were nice. I headed east towards the Pamir region, along endless paved roads through the mountains. Once in a while the roads were worse, but right here the roads were fun, and especially going downhill was always quite a reward. One of the few reasons why going uphill was definitely worth it. Because if it goes uphill, it will go down again. So this is day 2 of my 10-day Pamir highway challenge. Yesterday I made 126 kilometers, although I dare say the road was quite a bit better than now, most of the time. Also worse at parts, but mostly it was really good. A lot of climbs, up to 1,800 meters over sea level. I'm on 1,200 almost. Yes, so there'll be some dust coming out now. Whoops, oops, there we go. Oh, that's nice. Yes, today there'll be very, very bad roads coming up. Officially almost closed, according to locals. Up to 3,000 something meters, I think. Let's see how that works out. Luckily, I just found a nice source of water where I could filter my stuff and have some nice food. I am very, very late, I have to say. This morning I repaired my bike, fixed the tire, cooked some tea, packed my stuff. Left shortly before 8. Rode a little bit, found some water, now it's 9 after eating breakfast. Well, let's go! Yes, good morning. This is day 3 of my Pamir challenge. I had a wonderful camp on almost 3,000 meters over sea level. It did get cold. I'm wearing 3 jackets, 1 pullover, 1 t-shirt and 1 long-sleeved undershirt. My water got well frozen tonight. Great stuff. Really nice. This landscape is just blowing my mind. It really is. I just climbed to that small peak and had a look at the rest of the scenery. Amazing. Yes, so recap on yesterday. The road, as you see, is not isn't great, and that really is one of the best parts I've seen so far. No big loose gravel, no huge holes,
no river crossings without bridge. So I did have to take a jeep for, well, according to the driver, 30 kilometers, but I think it was quite a bit more, rather 50. This did make my life a lot easier. After that I pushed my bike for a few kilometers because it was just so steep that I had no other chance on reaching this spot. Well, now I will still have about 300 meters to do, 300 meters up until I reach a pass, and then I'll be rolling down to Korog. Hope the road will get better.
Safe to say the road didn't get great. Actually, driving down was painful in the hands because I was holding my brakes so hard just to make sure the bike won't fly apart. My camp was on the Panji River, looking over Afghanistan on the other side, and also here I cooked tasty food with view of Afghanistan. Definitely a beautiful place for a spot at the border point with my bike. Kids are always the same, playing with Kalashnikovs, having a great time. Showering is maybe a challenge in the mountains, but well, where there's water there's a shower, right? Often it's not easy to find a good place to camp off the trodden paths, but here, no problem. I was quite surprised to meet a guy from Fürstenwalde Spree in Brandenburg, not too far from our home. He made one of the biggest quad tours in the world and agreed to take a few photos of me, so here we go, me in the Pamir Mountains. After talking a bit of German and socializing for half an hour, I was again alone, struggling, fighting the mountains. On over 4,000 meters altitude, passing Kurog, heading straight to the Iqbal Pass, which was supposed to go up to 4,600 meters over sea level. Quite a place for a small snack, cooking at the roadside. There were about 5 cars a day, so the traffic wasn't an issue here. I finally made it to the top, thinnest air I ever had while cycling, helping some motorcyclists because their engines failed due to the thin air and overtaking them afterwards. Quite a feeling on the bike. I reached the highest point, which you can see here. It was bitter cold, and I tried to lose as much height as possible and had one of my coldest nights on about 4,300 meters over sea level. The next day I was rewarded with absolutely stunning views and reached the town of Karakol at the Karakol Lake, where I found a place to sleep with an oven and a small family's home. While the family was happy to sleep in the living room, they gave me the bedroom for $10 a night, and finally I didn't have frozen feet on the next morning. The next morning started again with great views, heading towards Kyrgyzstan up the mountains, and I made it to Kyrgyzstan after a few flat tires in the no man's land and hitched a ride in a truck towards Osh, which was really nice for a change, just to move without using one's own power. Then met in Bishkek Florian from Berlin and Jürgen, the guy with a quad who probably made a world record on this quad tour from Germany all the way to Kyrgyzstan. Did some sightseeing and headed back home. But hey, this is only the beginning. I found this material on my GoPro and never really used it before, and now I want to do a, well, not similar tour, quite different tour, but into a similar part of the world. And this time I plan to film a little more, make a real adventure out of it that I can share with you, driving through Central Asia in a 36-year-old BMW. So please stay tuned, follow the channel for more, and I'm looking forward to share this adventure with you.